Hello everyone, it's Sonic Bro here, and today I'm going to give you my review of the third Sonic movie. I have been waiting 2.5 years for this movie since the release of the second movie, and let me just tell you guys, every movie gets better and better. This movie is about Sonic finally meeting Shadow, and we kind of learn about Shadow's own personal story and how that develops into the journey and adventure that goes on between Shadow and Sonic and even Eggman, as well as his grandfather, Gerald Robotnik. That's all I can really say because I do not want to give any spoilers at all for this movie because I know a lot of people are trying to avoid spoilers for this. So that's the only plot synopsis I can really give for you guys right now. As for the pros and cons, let's get into the pros for sure. Out of all the movies that have come out so far, this is like one of the most game accurate movies I've seen. Like even more game accurate or even calling back to a lot of references and a lot of stuff from the games compared to like the last movie or so. And this movie has a lot of references to mainly Sonic Adventure 2, honestly. And as a Sonic fan, you're gonna love that, trust me. And dude, the action is some of the best in this movie, man. Like out of the entire trilogy, this is some of the best action you're gonna see in this movie, man. Like, dude, especially in like the last 30 minutes, man, you are not ready. You are not ready for it. Trust me when I say this. The last 30 minutes is just gonna have you jumping with joy in your seat at the theater, man. Like, you're gonna have your mind blown. Your mind blown. The CGI has definitely improved since the last movie. I've talked about before how I actually preferred the CGI from the first Sonic movie compared to the second one, but I actually do think the CGI in this movie has actually greatly improved since the last movie. And that has to do with how every character in this movie looks. Like, you look at Sonic, you look at Tails, you look at Knuckles. The detail and character design, as well as just how they look and how much the quality of the CGI has improved since the last two movies, especially with Shadow, man. Like, and let me just talk about Shadow for a second. Shadow is the coolest character in this entire movie. Like, dude stands out from like almost every single character in this movie. Keanu Reeves is voicing Shadow for this movie. I'm watching the movie and I'm hearing Keanu Reeves speak in his Shadowverse for the first time, and I'm like, dude, they nailed the casting, man. They nailed the casting for this. Keanu Reeves was actually really good for Shadow. And Keanu Reeves really gives a great performance, man. Like, I can't tell you enough. Especially with the fact with how Jim Carrey is back for this movie and how he's playing both Robotnik and Gerald Robotnik as well. The comedy in this movie, especially with Jim Carrey, it is insane. Like, not insane to where it's like, oh, dude, this movie is so funny. Like, because this movie is funny, of course. But it's like, if you've watched like any of Jim Carrey's like movies from like the 90s or maybe 80s, you notice that his type of humor is funny, silly, but also like a tiny bit weird and a little bit in your face. Like, that's the humor that you're gonna have in this movie a little bit. Like, it's funny, don't get me wrong. There are a couple times where I'm like, it's funny, a little weird, but trust me, you're gonna have a lot of laughs for this movie. Eggman actually has some character development throughout this movie. Like, it's insane, but like trust me, when you watch the movie, it'll all make sense. And something I also want to get point out is that the human characters are there in this movie still, but it's not like there's like a huge human subplot in this movie like the first two movies. It solely focuses on its main characters like Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, Shadow, the Eggmans. Like, they're the main focus of this movie. They don't try to give as much focus as they do to the Wachowskis. They're in this movie, but it's not like they gave them that much attention as they did in the last two movies, especially with the wedding scene in the last movie. So it really gives us a lot more time to focus on the main characters in this movie, and I greatly appreciate that they did that for the fans, especially, honestly. This movie really does a great job of balancing out the darker elements of the story with all the funny, and all the cool stuff that happens in this movie. It's a good balance, and a lot of stuff happens in this movie related to Shadow that's dark, but there's a lot of cool stuff that happens with Sonic and everyone else that's really funny and cool. This movie does a really good job at balancing everything. Speaking of Shadow Man, like they really do his story justice. Like it's a kids movie, so of course they have to like censor like one or two things, especially from what we know from the original Shadow lore. But like they do it in a way that respects his origin, and it feels like in its own way they did it right with their own story that they're trying to make with in the movie. So I definitely do say that they did Shadow's story great. And honestly, that's really all I have to say about the pros, honestly. There isn't really that much cons, but let's get to that right now. I think in like the first 15 to 30 minutes of this movie, the movie is a little bit fast paced. Like I feel like we're only spending like a couple minutes or maybe even just 1 minute in like this one scene, and then we already have to skip forward from like point A to point B in a matter of like seconds. And I feel like we could just like spend more time, at least a little bit, and like just to kind of take in what's going on, especially. Like it feels fast paced like in the beginning of the movie, but then as the movie progresses it starts to slow down a little bit more. Really, that's my only real complaint. My only nitpick honestly is how like Jim Carrey is really funny in this movie playing two characters, of course, Dr. Eggman and Joe Robotnik. And he does a really good job, don't get me wrong, and he is really funny in both roles. But the humor is like OG Jim Carrey, like from like the 90s, like something like you would see from like The Grinch or The Mask, if that makes sense. And it's really funny, it's all in your face, and that's kind of like what makes it more hilarious. It's out of pocket, but it's also like out of pocket for like a Sonic movie, if that makes sense. Like it's a Sonic movie, a lot of kids are gonna watch this and they're gonna be like, okay. Like, it's funny. And a lot of the stuff that they do in this movie makes me laugh, of course. It's just that there are a couple of times where I just feel like the movie is a little too weird at a couple of times, but it's still funny. Like I have a weird sense of humor, but that's just honestly my only nitpick, to be honest. There's nothing much wrong with this movie, to be honest. Like it's a great movie. And like I said, if you're a Sonic fan, you're gonna love this. And if you know someone that is a Sonic fan and is dying to see this, go take them out to the movies. They're gonna have an amazing time, especially with the two post-credit scenes that's gonna set up Sonic 4 in 2027. Yes, this is not a drill. I am not capping. We're getting Sonic 4 in 2027, and the mid-post credit scenes are setting up for that. Trust me, man, you are going to be bouncing up and down in your chair in the theater watching the credit scenes, man. Like, you are just going to have a really good time with this movie, especially. And honestly, my rating for this movie, I would have to give it an honest minimum, actually, 93% on the Bruh score. Like, yes, this movie is not perfect or anything, but it is definitely a really good movie, and that's my score at minimum. Like, I could definitely raise it a little bit high, but that's just my score at minimum, to be honest. Like, that's my honest score. And yeah, overall, I really did enjoy this movie, and as a Sonic fan, this is like one of the best movies that actually came out this year, in my opinion, next to like Inside Out 2 or Transformers 1 or Wild Robot. Those movies were awesome, especially this movie as well. And I know I haven't really been posting in like the last 3 months. I don't know what really happened to me about that, but I do really plan on making videos again, of course, and trying to get back on track and discipline myself to make more videos for you guys and also to build up my channel more. Because I really want to try and do this, as like a living, kind of, if that makes sense. Because I really like doing YouTube and it makes me feel like myself, like I'm doing what I like. It's honestly, guys, like I'm gonna tell you this right now, if I'm not posting consistently and I know I need to, like honestly, spam me in the comments. Spam me in the comments like, Sonic bro, when are you gonna make your new video? Like spam me in the comments, because that's gonna remind me like, okay, I need to get back to making another video. Like I can't be lazy. I cannot be lazy because it compromises myself from making videos. So I really need to get back on track, honestly. But hopefully I'm fully back now and able to do this thing. But yeah, honestly, that's all they really have to say, honestly. this was a really good movie, and honestly a good movie to end off the year, honestly. And trust me, if you're a Sonic fan, if you know anyone that's a Sonic fan, make sure you and them go watch it because you guys are gonna have a great time. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.